Here is a poll question that we have up at Danny and Dusty on Twitter. You can find it on Twitter at Danny and Dusty, at Danny Meringue, at Dusty_Hera, or at 1080 The Fan. It's been reposted by all of them. What is the top priority to turn around the Blazers franchise? Superstar player, new coach, new front office, new owner. 4 options. We have those options up there because yesterday, as we were kind of going through the draft lottery, the disappointment that fans had when you get jumped by 3 spots, it was seemingly coming from every direction on where fans kind of are pointing their ire towards the franchise. And I thought that running a poll, let's get a good little sample of what we have here and what we're working with the Blazers. And currently, superstar player is leading the way, 46.5%. New coach is at 7.7%. New front office at 3.9%. And a new owner, 42.4% of the votes.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I put superstar player at the top of the poll just to save people from being stupid.
Okay.
But apparently it's not working. It's not working. I tried.
Okay.
It does not matter. James Dolan, god-awful owner. Awful for forever.
Mm-hmm.
Gets Jalen Brunson. What happened? Where are they at?
They're in the Eastern Conference semifinals.
Are they better than they've been in basically 20 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Glenn Taylor.
Yeah.
Minnesota Timberwolves owner.
The worst franchise
Very
in
bad
NBA
owner.
and North American sports history. They get Anthony Edwards, and what happens?
They are winning a playoff series for only the 3rd time in their franchise.
The first
history.
sweep in Minnesota sports history.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, very bad owner, Robert Sarver in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Did that team make the NBA Finals?
They did, yes.
Yeah, okay.
They did make the NBA Finals.
Okay. Just want to throw that out there. I could keep going.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dan Gilbert, great owner.
Awful owner.
Okay.
Well, and awful font chooser as well.
Win an NBA
Commentate.
Finals.
He has won NBA.
Been to multiple.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. With a superstar player.
Yeah. Okay.
With a superstar player.
Just
Okay.
we could just keep going down the list. Clay Bennett stole the Seattle Sonics.
Yeah.
They make the NBA Finals.
They have, yeah.
Okay.
They have.
It is so unabashedly on the player as the saving grace of a franchise. It will trump all.
It really will.
And it's not close. If you have a franchise centerpiece, Denver Nuggets, you get Nikola Jokic in there, and ta-da!
Now, okay, hear me out on this one. Do you feel that, because I go with superstar player too. I mean, duh.
It should be a landslide.
Now, do you think that ownership in Portland gets a brunt of the criticism because of the fact that there have been superstar players that have been here? There have been star players that have been here, and there's been an inability to get them over the hump. Whether it was like, look, the pillars of the franchise when it was Odin, Roy, and Aldridge, injuries just cut that thing down before it could even get off the ground. But Lillard was here, and look, that he is a star player.
Sure.
He is an all-NBA performer.
Who was the owner then?
It was Paul Allen.
Okay. Was it the same guy who was the owner that had Trader Bob?
Yep.
Okay.
Same owner. But then we've seen Jody took over. We went to Western Conference Finals. And they left Neil O'Shea in power for a few years too long.
Sure.
And then it is, all right, superstar player didn't work here. Now we need to do something else. So they don't want another superstar player because they say, well, it couldn't be the player's fault. It's got to be the owner. I think that is where they're coming from. I don't agree with that line of thinking because I would say that in the order of importance there, it went, you had the superstar, then the front office comes into play, and then your coach, and then your owner.
Yes. That would be the hierarchy I would go with.
In that order right there is where, You say the failures to support Damian Lillard were on the front office.
Yes.
Then it would go down to being on the coach, but the coach really, I thought Terry Stotts maximized what this Blazers roster could do
for years
because they were an incomplete roster no matter what Neil O'Shea told everybody that was out here. And then I go to the owner. I don't care. I don't know Jody Allen. I've never talked to Jody Allen or Bert Gold.
Nor have I. I've talked to Bert.
And I go down the line of, I don't need to make them happy.
No.
I don't. I could care less.
No.
But I don't think they're the issue right now. I mean, I'm saying that as just looking at, all right, if people are upset that they're not spending money, what do you point to and say they're not spending money on?
It's not the roster because their payroll's up. It's not the facilities because they're dumping money in the facilities. It's not the scouting department because they're dumping money into the scouting department. Like, where do you want them to spend the money?
The G League team.
They spent millions of dollars on getting a G League team up and running. Like, well, it's not nice around Moda. It's like, that's not a Portland Trailblazers thing. That's a city thing, and they're working with multiple people in the area to build that area up.
Yeah, and
it's like,
look, and
I'm not saying they're perfect. I am in no way, shape, matter, or form saying that. But the frustration, the ire and ownership, like, well, if it was a different owner, then they wouldn't have hired this coach, or they wouldn't have hired this GM, and this would have been different. It's like, what are the things that matter right now? What players do you have? What choices would have been different if you had a different GM? What choices would have been different if you had a different coach? Because in a redraft, you're taking Scoot Henderson. In a redraft, you're taking Shaedon Sharpe.
Yeah.
And none of those things, OG Anunoby wasn't gettable. The offers for number 3 last year weren't good enough. That's me. That's my opinion. Fully, wholly. Knowing what I know. And if another GM does that and kicks that can down the road another year and another year, that's what you really want, huh? It's just to hang on to that. It's like, no.
Here's where I'll start blaming ownership, because I think that what gets lost in it is ownership kept Neil O'Shea in power, really, in a position to run the organization at his own will for far too long.
You said into the ground wrong.
Yeah, okay. Into the ground for far too long. Now, you have to understand the dynamics of when Paul Allen died, when they make the Western Conference Finals, what they were having to undertake as taking over his entire estate. And then he bungled the hire of Chauncey Billups, the process of hiring Chauncey Billups. Maybe not even the hire of the coach himself, the process in which they did it, and embarrassed the franchise, embarrassed the city, embarrassed everybody. What did they do?
Embarrassed Chauncey.
They found a way to get him out, right? I mean, it wasn't solely because of that.
No, I mean, that was building.
They found cause.
Yeah. I mean, they
oust.
They tried to get Spoelstra.
And so
ownership tried to go get Eric Spoelstra before that.
Now, if they hold on too long and there isn't progress being made moving forward to Joe Cronin, then you say, all right, or Chauncey Billups, then you say, all right, now it's an ownership issue because they need to not just keep status quo. They need to do something to kind of move things along, right? Sure. But this goes down to the hierarchy that we're talking about. If you're void of a star player, you cannot put it wholly on the front office or the coach or the ownership, right? And there is not one. Now,
there's a lot of luck that goes into
the front office does need to identify, draft, and develop talent to put around whomever that is. But we talked about this at length. It really does take like top 3 pick to get a truly transcendent star, superstar type player.
You can stumble into a Giannis. You can
stumble into a Dame
Jokic.
at 6.
Yeah. Yes.
Stumble into a Dame at 6. Okay? And they did that.
Yeah.
They did
all
that.
Because Sacramento was like, Thomas Robinson, come on down.
Now, this is where we go to, all right, moving forward, what is the biggest priority for the Blazers? It's finding that star player.
Yes.
And that's where tanking, a lot of people aren't about that tanking life.
No.
And I don't blame you.
It's not fun.
It's an organization that has won 52% of its games over the
Historically,
history
yeah.
of the franchise. Like, that is really damn good.
I think it's 5th in NBA history.
Yeah, and you take the last 3 years out of it, it's
goes
probably
up.
around Jerry DiPoto's 54%. Jerry DiPoto would be very proud.
Yeah. I mean, if in your history you're winning over 50% of your games,
yeah,
that's insane. That's
Yeah.
I mean, it's going over 42 wins a season.
Yeah. So now this text says ownership is responsible for letting Neil run it.
Okay, cool.
Now-
That same ownership was also Paul Allen, the same owner
But-
that everybody just loved.
But with Paul Allen, there was always a F around and find out, right?
Mhm.
He would fire guys.
yeah,
and,
and he was going to, and then
and this
Dame
is where
talked him out of it.
this is where I go down the road of, guys, gals, it is like, we cannot fathom putting ourselves in the shoes of Jody Allen, Burt Cole, the Vulcans, after Paul Allen dies, and all of a sudden $20+ billion is in an estate is in your lap,
and it's two organizations. It's the Blazers and the Seahawks.
and you're having to unravel all of it.
Mhm.
In as much as we care about the Blazers and Seahawks fans care about the Seahawks, that was not the main priority because there were so many other
Mhm.
tentacles out there that Paul Allen had his money invested in, tied up in, and they were dealing with that. I can't even fathom
Yeah.
what they were doing. The Seahawks were allowed to just, hey, you guys kind of do your thing. We trust all of you guys up there. Blazers, same kind of deal. And the Blazers made the Western Conference Finals.
Mhm.
I don't blame Jody Allen, who was not involved, and she has become more involved by all accounts
Yes.
in both ownerships. But now you're sitting there and you're going, all right, now that they got their bearings straight, everything got sorted out. Neil was ousted as the president of basketball operations. They bring in Joe Cronin. Now, hiring in-house, that is above my pay grade, and that's why I go, I'll start blaming ownership if Joe Cronin and company don't work out.
Yeah, here's
And
the
they're
thing.
not improving, and they're not finding
And
a way.
here's the thing as it pertains to Joe, whether you agree with him or not, what's the thing that he hasn't done? Look, I like Joe because it was like, oh, you're carrying his water. No, I like Joe because he did what I wanted to do for 7 years. That's why I like him. There was a decision made to, instead of walking this tightrope of stupidity, either go all in or get the hell out. And they got out.
And people criticize the return for CJ McCollum. The market for CJ wasn't there because Neil overvalued him
Mm-hmm.
more than anybody else in the league.
And right now, no one will touch him.
So CJ goes to New Orleans. That was like the first piece to untangling the S-Web
Mm-hmm.
financially and get the books right. They got the books right.
Look at the contract now for CJ. Look at the contract now for Norm Powell. Like, Norm's a solid player, but he's not changing anything here. Long term, would you rather have Norm Powell or Shaden Sharp?
And untangling that mess was the first step into all of it. Damian Lillard was the next one.
Yes.
Okay. The return on Dame is still TBD. And we will find that out over the course of several years.
Yes.
And look, Joe Cronin may not even be the GM when we find out the full return for Dame.
Look, I'll tell you this right now, as it pertains to Joe. If they go through this next year and they tank, and let's say they end up a top 3 pick in this next draft, the pressure is then on.
Yeah.
And if they go out and they're bad because they missed on the pick, or structurally they haven't made real gains, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe was fired. Like, I think you're going to see a little bit of pressure this year, not to win, but to start making changes,
to see what improvement looks like.
Yes, to see what improvement looks like and a reshaping of the roster.
This is interesting. I want to hear as many voices as we can on this.